Do you agree? That's the big question here. When it comes to the Montreal Canadiens and the player we are discussing in today's video. Now, obviously, there are a number of really great stories that we can talk about with the Montreal Canadiens. How will Jacob Fowler do in his debut in the American Hockey League? Nick Suzuki and Lane Hutson have taken over the league in terms of scoring points like crazy and being some of the best impact makers on the Habs. There's a bunch of great things that we can talk about, but in this video, we are diving into a conversation about one of the guys that has not had that same positive fate as of late. Because what I wanted to do was refer your attention to D-man Arber Xhekaj and get into a conversation that was brought up on the BPM Sports Radio airwaves as to what Xhekaj's future holds and whether or not it is possible to see him get traded. This is a brief update here. So Arber Xhekaj, the reason we are talking about Wi-Fi in this video is because of the fact that he has been scratched for the past 3 games worth of Montreal Canadiens hockey. He was scratched in both of the Florida games. He was scratched against the Boston Bruins. The Habs won each of those games in pretty convincing fashion. They kind of destroyed the Bruins, and then they willed a win out of thin air against the Florida Panthers in overtime. But Arber Xhekaj has not played in some of the hottest games the Habs have had the past little while. And with 6 points in 69 games played this season and 118 penalty minutes, you could definitely see where Xhekaj's value lies as a National Hockey League defender. Despite the fact that he does have a decent shot when he gets it off through traffic, and the fact that he can get some points once in a while, this is a lot more of a brute player that we've been chronicling as a brute ever since he made his debut with the team all those years ago. We've called him the Xhekaj Titan for a reason. All those games against Ottawa, going out there and pummeling guys, giving opponents a difficult time, crossing the line in some instances, even getting to the point where even some Canadiens fans are like, yeah, the guy is giving a little bit too much there. Maybe it's unsafe or maybe it's not really helpful for the team. You can debate whether or not that really is the case here, but I wanted to turn your attention to a video clip on BPM Sports Talk's Twitter account because they went out there and had Bob Hartley on as a guest to speak out about Arber Xhekaj. This was from 4 days ago, and the quote reads as follows: Arber Xhekaj will eventually be traded. He was never able to establish himself with the coaching staff. He has no leash. He makes one mistake and immediately pays the price, while others are given more chances. His days with the Montreal Canadiens are numbered. This same video also features Jean-Charles Lajoie going out there and saying that he doesn't really think Xhekaj is a part of the Canadiens' plans anymore. Hard to believe, but at the same time, it's starting to look that way. He's barely playing, often the 7th D-man, and he doesn't seem to have the trust of the organization. This article we're reading, by the way, is on HabsFanatics.com. It'll be linked in the description along with the BPM Sports video. But I wanted to dive into this right here. Do you think it's more likely than not that Arber Xhekaj gets traded sometime in the next little while? With the emergence of Lane Hutson, with the recent reacquisition of Cayden, with Logan Mayu's development, and with David Reinbacher, not to mention Jayden Struble in there too, you could very well debate that there isn't necessarily room for a guy like Arber Xhekaj. You could even say that there are going to be some spots opened up because David Savard may not re-sign. Mike Matheson, who knows what's going to happen with him. But ultimately, Arber Xhekaj you could see as a guy that's maybe just a little bit too underutilized to put too much stock into as a longer-term Montreal Canadien. I know Arber Xhekaj's contract expires in 2026, so he has another year on it at $1.3 million a year. Not a super expensive deal, not really something that I think a lot of folks would go out there and say is a bad contract per se. But ultimately, this is a guy whose value on the team has really not been there. Even when he is in the lineup, even when he is hitting guys and stuff, I don't want to make it seem like that stuff isn't valuable, but there is a certain ceiling that I think Arber Xhekaj can provide for the Canadiens in terms of his on-ice play. And quite frankly, I don't think he hits it as often as he should in order to be justifiably given a spot. This is why Bob Hartley went out there on the radio and said, yeah, the guy's probably going to get traded. The coaching staff doesn't trust him. He makes a mistake. He doesn't get any sort of forgiveness. And a lot of other folks on the Canadiens can make those same mistakes and they'll still be able to play and able to rotate around. Arber doesn't get that luxury. And because he's not trusted, because the Montreal Canadiens staff, they don't really utilize him as much, they don't believe in him as much, there's no reason for him to still be a Canadian, and thus he could get traded soon. There also was a conversation on, I believe it was the same BPM Sports Talk program, where Jean-Charles Lajoie goes out there and recommends Xhekaj to play as a forward. And that certainly would change things up in a more unexpected way. Not that I think that's an idea that's really worth diving into at this stage of his career. I don't think he could pull off a reverse Brent Burns and make that switch. It's just so drastic. Although I do wonder, what would a line of Xhekaj and Xhekaj look like? Because Florian Xhekaj has been doing pretty well in the AHL. We actually can go out there and make some video commentaries about him and his progression, because there have been some folks labeling him as a potential Tom Wilson type, and I think that's a definite win for the Montreal Canadiens. But Florian is a lot more of an offensive guy. He can score goals. Arber cannot. And I guess you can make the debate, oh, if Arber was a forward, maybe he'd be able to do the same thing too. Let's be real, that's probably not going to happen. If anything, you're looking at Ryan Reeves, Pat Maroon 2.0 if Arber Xhekaj steps up and becomes a forward. I do imagine how nice it would be to see him lay guys out on the forecheck, but there is such an elegance to guys being able to be physical and dominate with body checks as a defender, just having guys come towards them and then stepping into the body like that. Kind of different from the forward side of it, but ultimately, Arber Xhekaj, I don't necessarily know if he has the mobility to be a serviceable NHL forward. He definitely has the snarl to get into board battles and come away with the puck and maybe a few bruised eyes in the process, but ultimately, this is a guy whose position in the lineup has not been guaranteed, it has not been utilized, and as a result, Bob Hartley's going out there on the radio saying this guy is going to get traded. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Firstly, do you agree with that assessment? Do you think that Arber Xhekaj is going to get moved? And secondly, when? Is this something that's more inevitable than not? Is this some sort of a lame duck situation? Do you think Arber Xhekaj, his time is running out in Montreal? And bonus question to y'all, if he gets traded, what do you think that does to Florian Xhekaj and that guy's development with the Canadiens? I'm thinking about one situation in Chicago where an older brother got traded as the younger brother was a prospect. Because guess what? Kirby Dach is no longer a Blackhawk. Colton Dach is. He made his debut with the Hawks, and he's doing pretty all right. That was a situation that you could say might have been impacted by Kirby's trade. Who knows? Is Florian going to be in a similar boat where Arber gets traded and then Florian becomes a decent NHL player on the team that his brother was once a mainstay young piece of? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.